Hi, good morning, everyone. Okay, so welcome back. All right, so for today, we will have our last lecture. And next week, when I say last lecture, it's just the last chapter, it's just the last topic. But next week, we are going to do our revision. And in 2 weeks, we are going to have a class test as well. I'll just briefly talk about it later and more on that next week because I know this is only week 9, but your week 12 is, if I'm not mistaken, a public holiday. So we have to try to bring forward everything a little bit quicker. So today we'll finish our last chapter. Next week we'll do a revision. I'll talk more about your class test. And the following week on 12th of October, we will have a class test. And your class test is basically going to be about 15 questions, multiple choice questions. 15 questions, multiple choice questions. I'll talk about it again later. Whole week 12 is holiday. Is it holiday? I think it's only Tuesday. So before not attending class on week 12, I'm pretty sure it's only Tuesday. Not week 12, Sadar. Only Tuesday, Sadar, on 19. I forgot what holiday that is, but it's not the whole week. It's only Tuesday. So all of your classes on Tuesday, it's not cancelled, but you will not have to attend class on Tuesday, week 12. But the other classes you still have to attend. PSE, we will still have tutorial on week 12, unfortunately.
So I was so happy.
No, it's not the whole week, Sadar. I'm sorry. But after week 12, it's your holiday. After that, you can have your whole week break.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
Yeah, I think you will have like 1 week of study week if you do not have any other submission, or if you do not have exam, then you can use it to rest. If you have exam, then you still have to study at that time, but at least you have more free time.
Oh, okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, welcome. All right, so today we are going to talk about language. Okay, so this is quite simple. And I'll try to tie in a little bit with a couple of discussions for our group symposium because we were supposed to cover this a little bit earlier, but we couldn't manage. But let's cover this for the sake of group symposium and also revision and future users as well in your life. Okay, so for today, we are going to talk about the power of language, why this is so important when you are giving a speech or when you are giving a presentations or communicating in general. Okay, but today we are going to look at it from a formal perspective because we are giving a speech. And later we are going to look at a couple of things that we have to improve in our speeches because your symposium, you still have to give short speeches, basically. With that, you still have to make sure that they are impactful, it has a message, it is persuasive or informational for your audience. Okay, so we are going to look at how to make our message a bit more clear and vivid. We are going to talk about stylized language as well. And very briefly, we are going to talk about language pitfalls and a little bit more on language and ethics at the end of the session so that you can have a little bit of arguments as well if you want to during the symposium, but we have to do it politely and professionally. Okay, so first of all, let's just do a simple activity. Okay, let's say you are asked to list everything that you know about the country Italy. Okay, and I just want you to assume that you've never been to Italy. Okay, for those who have, good for you. But for those who do not have, great, you can relate with this a little bit more. Okay, what would you write regarding Italy? So when that name pops up, what is the first word that pops in your mind? Can you write in the meeting chat? Okay, obviously we have to make it about food. All right, pasta. Okay, food. Okay, baguette. Okay, baguette is, yeah, Italy kind of. It's more of a French thing, but I guess in Italy it's also a common thing. Pizza, Euro winners, spaghetti. Yeah, they're very particular about their spaghetti. Okay, Rome, which is their capital. Beauty, Euro winner 2020. Okay, good. I did not watch that, but I assume it's correct. Ferrari. Okay, so a lot of this, okay, these are different words, okay, that you might associate with a country. And that's the reason why we associate all of these things with a specific country. It's because of culture and it's because of what we're used to. Okay, like for example, a lot of you mentioned food, and some of you mentioned the city and the items that were known or famous in Italy. So all of this is due to language and culture. And most of the time, okay, all of this comes from viewing our movies. Because for those who have never visited a particular country, not just Italy, okay, if I were to ask you to list down things about another country, it's going to be similar. Most of this comes from things that we have watched, maybe on YouTube. Maybe you read articles about a particular country. Maybe the country becomes viral for different reasons. Like Malaysia, I think we have become viral for a lot of negative things in the past few years. Most of it is politics. I will not talk about it, but I know that I have a couple of friends who's not Malaysian. Some of them are from the UK because we used to work together. So they always assume that, or when we talk now, they always ask me about politics, which is frustrating because I don't want to Malaysia to be known as a country of politics that needs improvement. But that's basically the reality with every single culture and environment that we are in. So Italy is the same thing. Whatever that we see in movies, whatever that we see in on YouTube, maybe from reading, all of this uses language to educate us on a particular culture. So, okay, that's why we are going to talk about. Oh, that's why we are going to talk about the power of language. The GIF is not supposed to cover the words, but it's not too important. Let me just explain very briefly. Okay, language is very influential. Okay, it's a very powerful aspect of our daily lives. And when it comes to language, it relates with a lot of different things. Okay, our language reflects our social reality. So what this means is how we still view the world. Okay, and this is very important, especially for your symposium. Okay, how we view the world is very important because it's going to be reflected in our language. And what this means is, okay, let's say if you have a negative opinion about something, all right? Let's say if you have a negative opinion about a particular food, a particular culture, okay, chances are the language that you use to speak about things that are related to those topics might show who you really are. And sometimes we don't want this to happen because we are in a professional environment. So in the future, this is something that you have to remember when you are doing group assignment, professional environment. You are in a class, professional environment, or when you have started working, professional environment. No matter what you believe, okay, you always have to make sure that your language, okay, defines who you are, but at the same time, it does not go against where you are in your environment. As an example, okay, for me, I'm a very liberal person. I think there's a lot of things that we should start supporting that we're not supporting in Malaysia. It's still considered as taboo in Malaysia. Okay, but I also understand there's a lot of things in Malaysia. It's considered as taboo for different reasons. So when I go to work, okay, I cannot let some of this aspect of my life or my point of view to shape the way that I speak. Because if I allow that too much, then people in the environment, they might feel offended. That's number one. Okay, number two, it's also going to make some people uncomfortable, perhaps. Like, I think I've told you this many, many weeks ago. I love dry humor. I love things that are cruel and mean. I love humor that's very rude. But obviously, in a lot of places, we cannot do that because when we are in a professional environment, we have to look at the people in our environment. So wherever we are, okay, we have to make sure that our social reality is connected to what's going on, but at the same time, we also do not offend anyone. So I'll give more examples later. Okay, so the difference between communication and language, I'm pretty sure you know this already. Communication is when we try to transfer whatever that is on our mind. And communication does not always have to be language. It can be body language, it can be facial expression, which is a form of non-verbal language. So it's not always words that counts as communication. Or I'm pretty sure you learned in COS your pictorials, all of the pictures and everything, symbols, all of those as well are a form of communication. Let's say when we send GIFs or emojis. All right, so all of those are also a form of um, communication, even though the emoji or the GIFs do not contain any words. So all of those are a form of communication. But again, it's very important to send what we think in a way that's not going to offend anyone and it relates with our social reality. More on that later. Okay, language is also a system that we use. So language is just basically symbols that we use to transfer our messages more easily. So language is just something that we use to make communication easier at different places because not every time we can depend on body language. Like for example, right now, I definitely cannot give you a lecture and just depend on body language. It's not enough because if I'm asking you to read and I'm just moving here, then I might as well not teach at all because that way it's not going to be effective. Okay, so that's why we have to use language in certain form of communication. But language can be very powerful and it can shape people's mind and perspective very easily depending on what we say and where we are. Okay, so let's discuss very quickly. Okay, with this particular quote. Okay, if we just communicated more for a longer periods of time, we would be able to understand each other better. Do you agree with this statement? Let's say you have a friend or an acquaintance that you're not very close. if we just communicate longer with that person, okay, would we understand that person better? Okay, let's hear from Elvis. What do you think, Elvis?
Hi, sir.
Hi. Okay, would you agree with this statement?
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree.
can is it in the morning, Elvis? Did you just wake up?
Yeah, sorry.
All right. No, no, it's all right. It's all right. I understand. Okay, can you try your best to elaborate a little bit? Why do you agree?
We get to know more about the person, and then by talking to his or her,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that's all.
So by talking, we are going to know that person more.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Elvis. Okay, Dinesh says something here as well. I agree, sir, because it's sort of ice breaking. Okay, yeah. In a lot of cases, it is a form of ice breaking, like Dinesh mentioned. Even when you think you know someone, maybe by communicating with them more, you probably will be able to understand them more. Okay, whether or not you like them more or you dislike them more, that's a different case. That depends on the words, on how they communicate or express themselves. And I'm pretty sure you have been in situations where you think you know a person and then you communicate with them more and then you know who they are for real, and it makes you like them more or dislike them more. So all of this is basically our social identity. So our language and our communication shows who we are as a person. So obviously, if you are with your friends, you can be a little bit free to express yourself, because if you're going to express yourself with your friends, then I feel it's a bit difficult to express your true self to anyone else if it's not your friends, or for some people also your family. Okay, but be a bit careful in professional environment. Okay, you should know your limit. Even when you believe in something, if it's considered negative, or if your point of view might not be considered as a good point of view in that particular environment, okay, try to filter yourself, because there are a lot of things like that we might believe, but it's not appropriate for a particular environment. For example, like myself, I have my own political views. Okay, but I'm not allowed to say anything here because this is a professional environment. I'm not allowed to provide my political opinions in greater details here, because that's not what we are to do here. We are going to learn public speaking. We are not talking about politics. Same goes as religion. I have my own views when it comes to religion. Some of them are good, some of them are probably not so good in terms of a lot of different things. But I cannot express or detail that here because this is, again, a professional environment. So whatever that I feel, positive or negative, because that's common, okay, we have to be careful on where we are and how we express it. Samuel said, yes, in general. I think it also depends how open and genuine both parties are. Yeah, I agree, Samuel. And this is why we have to be careful. Because I've been in situations where I've said things to my friends, not in a professional environment, to my friends where I've told you I'm very liberal. So I have a lot of opinions on a lot of things. But sometimes when the person that you're speaking to, they're not as open as you are, okay, there might be conflict there as well, which is not a surprise. Okay, like for example, as a Malaysian or as a Malay, I've always believed that when it comes to education, we should be able to be given equal rights, no matter what our races are, no matter where we come from, even if that person is not Malaysian. I feel if they are qualified to go into certain places, they should be given that right. Okay, but not everyone agree with me. And I've spoken about this as well with my closest friends. I just told them I think everyone should be given equal right to study, not just the Bumi Putra or not just the Malays. Everyone, if you are qualified, if you have the skills, if you've proved yourself, you should be given that chance. But obviously, some of my friends don't agree with that, which I respect. But this is an example. So I've also faced the same issues too. Yeah, do you want to share, Samuel? Or is that too sensitive here? If you feel like sharing, you can share the situation. But if it's too sensitive, it's all right. Do not feel burdened to share. So basically, when we communicate with other people, it does not always mean that we are always going to become closer with that person, because sometimes our opinion might conflict, might clash, and that person might not be able to take whatever we feel. So we have to be a bit careful as well. With your friends, probably you can be a bit comfortable, but in a fresh professional environment, you have to be very careful because people are constantly observing and evaluating you. Like in the future, always remember that even when you're speaking with a person that is not your leader or your employer or your boss, you are still constantly being observed by the things that you say. So always be careful. I don't remember this. Okay, no problem. I understand. It's 8:30 in the morning. Okay, so basically, when it comes to communication and language, many of us believe that when problem arise, okay, we should strive to have better communication between parties. And oh, does someone want to share something? I think that's an accident. Okay, when we have like any conflict, we should always to strive to have more communication. But this is not always the case, because I see this is a common theme among a lot of people. And I'm not sure if you can relate to this, but when you are in a particular argument, professional or outside of professional setting, I notice a lot of people tend to raise their voice. Sometimes raising our voice is not particularly a bad thing because we just want to be heard. Or maybe we just become a little bit too emotional at times. Okay, but we also have to remember when we raise our voice, it can have like a negative effect sometimes. And what is more important than just raising our voice is the words that we use, which I normally see even in my environment of people in my 30s. I still see this happening. Like when they argue, they try to raise their voice and they start using words that are very inappropriate. Even when we are among friends, we are discussing something, they're not satisfied, they're using things that they shouldn't have used in that particular situation. Okay, so not in all cases, more communication means better. Okay, we have to change the way we communicate as well, focusing on language choice. So always remember that when you are in an argument, especially in your symposium, you can create a symposium where you have arguments between speakers. If you want to plan that, go ahead. But I do not want you to simply have characters that are screaming for no reason and there's no content there. If you want someone to argue or raise their voice, you can do that, but make sure there's a content in whatever he or she is saying so that the communication actually becomes more effective in your symposium. Okay, so when it comes to making sure that our language choice is better, okay, there are a couple of things that we can remember and improve. Okay, the first thing is something that I've talked about quite frequently before, which is using simple language. Okay, and I think I've mentioned to some of you regarding this after your evaluation that your speech maybe does not sound very genuine. Okay, if you receive that feedback, okay, there's a chance that maybe the words that you use might not sound like things that we normally use in our daily conversation. Okay, some of you did use like bombastic words and it was effective with the topic. Some of you were not. So depending on your topic, and your comfort when it comes to the level of language and also the way that we communicate, choose simple language. Choose simple words. Because in my opinion, that's where I can tell as well, people are being genuine when they're not trying to force the words that they use to the point that it makes it obvious, or this person is using some kind of thesaurus. Or when you're writing in your Microsoft Word, you are choosing the synonym to different words to the point that it becomes noticeable. So if you tend to do that, I suggest do it less because when you use Microsoft Words to change the synonym, the words that they suggest might not actually be very close to what you have in mind. So that's when we have to be a bit careful here. After that, using a long word when a shorter one or a simple one is better. Okay, so sorry, using a long word when a short one will do and inhibit your ability to communicate clearly. So a lot of times, sometimes we use like more complicated words thinking that it's going to increase the communication effectiveness, but it's not always the case because you always have to remember if you are using complicated words, your audience cannot understand. It's not an effective use of language. Always use simple words. And I tell that to myself as well. I don't try to use complicated words. Sometimes I have to because it's related to what we are talking about. But most of the time, just use simple words because the objective is to allow people understand. If we use something that's very difficult to understand, then it defeats the purpose because that person will not be able to understand the message that we are giving. Okay, let's look at another question here. So let's say your friend texts you and tells you that they will call you later. Okay, can you let me know when your friend tells you later here, okay, what do you understand from the word later in this situation? So let's say your friend texts you, okay, I'll call you later. Or if you have like a girlfriend, boyfriend, they tell you, okay, I'll call you later. What do you understand by the use of the word later here? Heidi, they never call back. Okay, I think your friends are like me. When I say I'll call you later, I'm just trying to avoid talking to you. And I don't want to call you back. And I don't want to talk to you in that moment. So usually I will tell you I'll call you later. Shao Sun, when he or she is totally free. Okay, yeah. Sometimes they also mean when they are free. Let's say they are in class. Let's say when you're doing something important and you cannot speak. So you tell them, okay, I'm busy now. I'll call you later. Alam, his father is next to him. So you don't want your father to know that you are in a relationship. Okay, that makes sense. Muhammad Saad, no calls. Yeah, if it's me, if it comes from me, if I tell you I'll call you later, that probably means I will not call you. I just want to run away from this conversation, and I'm gonna hope that you're gonna forget by nighttime. Yiswen, when they message us back, okay, yeah. Sometimes my friends do that. They're busy. They just call, I'll call you later, and then they either message or they call me back. I'll call you in a few minutes, 2 hours. And you're waiting for hours, but they are not going to call you back. I expect later on in the same day, but sometimes I never got the call. Yeah, I think this is a common thing because the word later is different for everyone's opinion. Usually would mean that they don't want to talk to me at that moment, and that's okay. I don't really mind. But it depends on what friend it is. Yeah, I agree. I do have a couple of friends who really mean it. When they tell me they are going to call me later, they are going to call me later. Like, I'm not sure if you know her. I'm pretty sure you know her, Miss Rutira. She's one of my closest friends here. When she tells me she's going to call me later, she's going to call me later, maybe in a few minutes or in a few hours. So she's that kind of person. I know her. She's very trustworthy. So that's why communicating with her, I find it easy because I don't have to worry about anything. When she says, okay, we're going to discuss this later, she's going to call me back later. Okay, but I'm the kind of friends that when I tell you, um, I'm going to call you later, I'm going to disappear for months and I'll text you maybe next month, perhaps reminding you that I'm still your friend if we don't have anything important to talk about. So you are lucky. Why do you have a crush on Miss Rutira? Okay, I'll tell her, Sa'ad. Okay, but this just means that people have different meaning of later. Okay, some people actually mean it. Like Miss Ruchira, she means it. When she tells me later, she's going to call maybe after class. But for me, I don't mean it. When I tell people I'm going to call them later, I usually will not do anything because I'm too lazy to call back. So it depends. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is when we are communicating, to avoid that, it's best to ask your friend for a specific time frame. Yes, correct. If you have to discuss about something, ask for a specific time frame. And this is what I do as well. Because when I have to talk about work, let's say with Miss Rutira, she has to do something or I'm busy. I will tell her exactly when I'm going to call her because if I provide you time, that means I'm going to call. If let's say I'm in class and I tell a person I'm going to call you at 10:30, okay, I'm going to call you. If I give you a specific time, I mean it. But if I give later, I don't mean it. I'm just going to disappear. So it depends on different people that you are speaking to. Later can be 1 minute from now to few days or weeks, which makes sense. Or never, or never. So when you're communicating, we want to make sure that our language and communication is concrete and precise. So this relates with our speech. So when you are writing your speech, you want to make sure that you use words that are very specific and as clear as possible, making sure that people will be able to understand what we are trying to say. And I've been encouraging you to make your speech a little bit more descriptive when you talk about your stories and everything. That's one of it, because when you use concrete and precise language, people can imagine. Okay, but most importantly, people can understand what you are trying to say. in that exact topic or in that exact moment. So basically here, as an example, these are just simple examples. Let's say you have a dog as a pet, and you want to talk about your dog, and your dog is this breed. So you might want to use the term German Shepherd right away because that's the breed of your dog. So the more specific your content is, the better. And obviously, you can tell your audience German Shepherd is a breed of dog. That way, they know as well. Oh, German Shepherd is a breed of dog, and that's my pet. So let's say you are saying that it's very accurate and there's no confusion whether or not you're talking about your dog or dogs in general. So you can switch between the two. Let's say I don't have a dog, but let's say I have a dog. I want to give a speech about my own dog. Let's say I own a German Shepherd. Okay, if I want to tell you about my dog, so I'll probably use my German Shepherd, or I'll use the name if you're familiar with the name. If not, I'll probably use the word dogs in plural form to say that all dogs are this, all dogs are that. So use concrete and precise language. And it's not just animals, dogs, or people. You can use it with color as well. Okay, let's say I'm not sure if you're familiar with this character. I think this is a famous character from the early 2000s, which is my time when I was growing up. But we don't want to talk about the character. We just want to talk about the color. So the color here, I'm pretty sure it's lime green. So if you want to explain something, like something is in shades of green, the more specific that you can give information to it, the better. Because sometimes people can't imagine, okay, what shades of green you are referring to. Like for example, here, I'm pretty sure it's lime green, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it's lime green. So if you are talking about shades of green, maybe you can use lime green instead to describe something. So the more specific or precise your language is, the better. And the reason why we are talking about this is because when you're talking about your symposium, your topics, there are a couple of things that requires you to use specific words or specific and precise language. So once you are done with your draft for your group assignment, for your short speeches, just double check. Is there any words in the short speeches that you're preparing that could be a bit more specific? And it will allow the audience to understand the meaning more effectively. So use concrete and precise language. Like for example, two different words. Let's say lake and ocean. Okay, these two are different words. Okay, sometimes people might use the same thing, but it has different meaning. So use whatever that you mean in that particular situation so that the meaning is as clear as possible. So basically, when you're preparing for your symposium, after you are done with the draft of your short speech, double check. Okay, is there any words that I can make more specific? If there are, change it. Okay, if you feel the word is a bit more difficult, like let's say you want to use words like German Shepherd, but you are worried. What if they don't understand what this means? Okay, you can always let them know. Okay, German Shepherd is a breed of dog. That way your audience will be able to get one new word and they know what it means technically, and you are able to speak specifically as well. Okay, so basically, when you are giving a speech, try to make your speech as specific and as clear as possible. And I'm pretty sure some of you in class, I've given this feedback. Your speech is very expressive and also very descriptive to the point that I can't imagine what you are talking about without referring to your speech, your written one. And that's a high compliment because I feel when you're giving a speech, okay, when I'm not even paying attention to your written speech that you have submitted, but I was still able to imagine everything clearly, okay, that usually means that the way that you write your speech is very clear and very descriptive to the point that people can imagine right away. So make sure you improve on that when you are writing for your speech. Okay, so it's been 35 minutes. So let's take a break here because I know it's in the morning. So let's take a break here and we are going to continue with our lecture in 5 minutes. And after this, we are going to talk about a few more things in making your speech better and a bit more specific. Okay, but let's take a short 5-minute break here. Okay. So now let's continue. Okay, the next thing that we are going to talk about is using stylized language. Okay, stylized language is a bit more difficult because it requires you to have a little bit of proficiency with the language. So for those who are not very confident in your proficiency, there are a couple of things that you can still do to make sure that your language is still stylized for your speech. If you are very comfortable, if you are already very fluent with language, then you can have fun a little bit because you have the proficiency already. But for those who are not very fluent and you might be worried with your language, don't worry. There are a couple of simple things that you can do to make sure that your speech sounds a little bit more exciting to listen to. And one of them is going to be parallel structure when it comes to language usage. Okay, parallel structure is just a repetitive use of a couple of words that you keep on repeating throughout the speech. Okay, and usually these words, they will relate with the message that you are going to provide in your speech. Okay, rather than explain to you too much, okay, I'm going to show you a short portion of a speech given by Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, the late Martin Luther King Jr. I'm pretty sure some of you know this speech. If you have not listened or heard of this speech, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the title at least. It's a speech called I Have a Dream, given by Martin Luther King Jr. regarding racial discrimination and also segregation in America. Okay, so let's watch this speech first. We're not going to watch the whole thing because the whole thing is quite lengthy. For today, I just chose the small portion where there's a lot of parallel structure is being used in the language. If you want to listen to the whole thing, you can listen later. The link that I'm giving you is not the whole thing. You can find it on YouTube. I think it's probably around 15 to 20 minutes long, the whole actual speech. Okay, so let's move on to listening this speech first. Okay, let me know if there's no sound, all right?
Poverty. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
Okay, so that's a little bit of the portion of the video. You can watch the whole thing later. In my opinion, that's probably one of the best written and also delivered speech throughout history. And it also gives a message, important message, which we are not able to achieve yet. Obviously, it's better than that time. But we are not able to achieve the whole entirety of the speech yet. So I feel it's the kind of message that we can always spread to different people because we can create more awareness. But we're not talking about the awareness part of it, but we are going to talk about the parallel structure. Okay, I'm pretty sure throughout the speech you are able to identify that he kept on repeating the phrase, I have a dream. And that's why that speech becomes so well known and so recognized, not only because it has important message, but because it was scripted, drafted very well, and delivered with passion and expression as well. And after that, he also used the term black boys, black girls, and related with white boys, white girls. So all of these are simple parallels in your language that can bring the message. So for those who are not very comfortable with their language proficiency, this is a simple technique that you can make your speech a little bit more memorable, but do not overuse it. If you have, like, let's say a 2-minute short speech, for example, I don't want you to have like the whole speech to have parallels, because even though I showed you the portion where his speech earlier from Martin Luther King Jr., there was a lot of parallels, okay, but the whole speech is not just that. It has a lot of other elements as well. So obviously do not overuse this particular technique, because if you overuse it, it becomes a bit boring. After a while, people get bored with you repeating certain phrases and certain words and parallels throughout your speech. So use it sparsely, or use it a little bit, not too much, to the point that it makes people uninterested to listen to. Okay, after that, you are also encouraged to use personalized language. Now, from what I've seen from your speeches, a lot of you have done this. Okay, what we mean by personalized language is when you are inviting someone or when you are giving a speech, we are encouraging you to use words like us, you, we. Okay, because this means that we are speaking to them directly and we are personalizing our message to them. So what this means is we have created a message specifically for a group of people. And that is always a good thing, because people will feel that, oh, this message is created specifically for me. And that's why I have to listen, and it's going to be a bit more inviting and a bit more genuine for them as well when they're listening to the speech. Some of you still use words like, one might argue and so on, blah, blah, blah. A lot of that. It's not very exciting because when you say one might argue, it is formal. It's very good in argumentative essay and the like, but in a speech, okay, you can use once or twice, but when you use it too much, it might seem like the speech is not created specifically to a group of audience. You are not thinking about the audience, but instead you are thinking generally. So whatever message that you're thinking, I want you to think about your audience first. You know your friends better than I do, and you have to think, how can I give this message effectively to this group of audience, and how can I invite them to listen? Because I'm pretty sure you have experience with your friends, you know what makes them feel a bit more excited. And based on the topics that you have chosen for your group symposium, a lot of you have done this. I see that you have chosen topics that are very simple, very fun as well, and something that's very relatable. So it's a bit easier for you to invite and personalize the message in your speeches. Okay, so moving on from there, we just want to talk about language pitfalls. So this basically means anything that might make your speech or communication less effective. So that's why we use the word pitfalls here, because people do use it sometimes, but it's not effective here. Okay, so when you are giving a speech for your symposium, do not use profanity. Some of you, I noticed you did not plan to use it, but it comes out spontaneously when you panic. So be careful with that as well, because I think I saw like 1 or 2 example of you. It's not in the speech, but it comes out in your delivery, probably because you are nervous. That's one. But I think I've also seen like 1 or 2 of you, you use profanity in a sense that you've planned to use it, and it might be less appropriate to use in our situation. Not a lot of you do it, which is good, but try to avoid using profanity. Okay, and the next thing that we should try to avoid is exaggeration. Exaggeration is saying something in a dramatic way, way more dramatic than it already is or it is, basically. So I don't want you to exaggerate on the content too much, because you can use it once or twice, but not to the point that it sounds like you are making a big deal out of a small problem. So this is a common thing when we are talking about a serious issue. Okay, let's say you're talking about a particular issue, and then you're basically saying everyone is going through it, when in actuality, not everyone is going through it. So if you are able to provide the exact figures, facts, on how many people are going through it, it's a bit better, because people will see, oh, it's not an exaggeration, it's statistics. So instead of exaggeration, I usually prefer you to use more statistics to explain your answers. And incorrect grammar, I'm pretty sure you know why by now. We are not encouraged to use incorrect grammar in a speech, because speech is planned. If it's planned, it has to have less incorrect grammar. If you are presenting, I'm usually not going to be very particular about grammar, because this is something that you just plan a little bit and you present most of the time a bit more spontaneously. So presentation is still excusable. Or when you are communicating with someone, when you're speaking with them, it's a common thing that you have incorrect grammar. But when it comes to a speech, make sure you double check. And for those who are not very comfortable with your level of proficiency or your grammar, make sure to check with your friends, because now you're working in a group, so you can definitely ask for your group members to help you to check on your grammar. Okay, after that, there are a bit more discussion that we want to discuss today. So the next thing that we want to talk about is powerless language. Okay, so all of this powerless language, it means it's a word that does not give any meaning, or it does not give any impact on your message. Like, for example, okay, here, let's say when you say I sort of think. Okay, here there's a couple of issues when it comes to words being powerless. Okay, number one, I would say the phrase sort of. The phrase sort of here can be a little bit powerless. We use it all the time in our communication. Okay, but here it might not be able to give any effect or impact on your message. And the second word is the word think. Okay, we use it again in our daily communication and presentation, but in this case, it's probably has less the meaning to give an opinion. Okay, in this particular situation, I usually recommend not having the word sort of at all, because this word probably does not have any meaning at all. So when you're giving a speech, it does not make your speech more impactful. And when it comes to the word think, I usually recommend, wait, let me type that. I don't think my handwriting here is good. I believe that the word think is or sounds a little bit weaker than the word believe. So usually if you want to provide your opinion, I encourage using the word believe. Obviously, you can still say I think in your speech, but do not use it too much as well. If you are changing to something more important, I usually encourage you to use the word belief, because belief in terms of the meaning has a stronger meaning. Again, these are those words that have similar meanings when we use it, but when it comes to the power of the word, it has different degree of power. So we have to be careful. Okay, and the second word is maybe we should. So here is very simple. No need the word maybe here, because the moment you use the word maybe, there's a chance that we should. There's a chance that there's a probability that we shouldn't have done something. Okay, so do not use the word maybe here. And the last example, it seems to me that we are getting worse. Okay, again, the word seems here, it seems to me it can be a little bit more powerless. You can just say things are getting worse. Okay, all of this powerless language, if you have it in your speech, try to delete, because it does not give any effect or impact. And I've seen some of you, you do this because I give you a time limit. You have like around 5 minutes, so you put a couple of words here and there to add the time limit a little bit. From what I noticed, do not use it replace with something that's more meaningful, or replace with maybe another short discussion, so that it can have a better discussion. Okay, so the last thing that we want to talk about today is the importance of ethical and accurate language. Okay, the reason why we have to do this is because language is culturally transmitted. Okay, if we do not use language properly, it can give a signal. That's how we think in our environment. And that's where we come from. And sometimes not to hide our culture or thinking, but sometimes these things might not be too relatable or too suitable in our professional environment, and we want to avoid that a little bit. Okay, after that, for most of us, this means that whatever language that we learned, okay, that's how we use it. But a lot of us as well, we tend to learn more from our environment, our movies, our social media, our games, our books, a lot of different things, maybe our friends. So all of this is a sign of culture. And we want to make sure that we sound and look professional when we speak. It's not just how we deliver. The choice of words is also very important. Okay, so basically here, I want you to think about a world without language. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult. And when we are trying to participate in anything, obviously it's going to be a struggle for most of us, because we are so used on depending on language. So basically, people constantly produce language to categorize and organize the world. But some of these words might not be very suitable to be used here. Okay, as an example. Okay, let's look at just 2 examples on why this is important, and we can wrap up our lecture. Okay, so basically the first thing is we don't want to unfairly label one thing or based on personal bias, and it sounds a little bit negative. Okay, like for example, this is a very sensitive topic, so I apologize if this topic offend anyone, but I find that using this topic is very easy with the examples to bring up the discussion. Okay, let me just ask you briefly. Should people be allowed to have abortion? Okay, what do you think? Yes or no? Or do you have somewhere in the middle, maybe or depends? Okay, Jamil said no. Okay, Uzma said depends. Aiden said yes. So there's 3 different answers here. Okay, Sutesh, yes. Aaron depends. Okay, Hassan depend. All right, so a lot of different answers here. Carmen, yes. And Ruth depends. Cheng Hao depends. Okay, so I'm pretty sure Yuan Meng said no. So I'm pretty sure whatever reason you are supporting, not supporting, or you are saying depends, maybe has different reasons. Okay, Alam said no. Shahmi, no, depends, yes. Okay, that's a bit more confusing. Only in one case, when the mother's life is in danger. Okay, so you might have different opinion. Okay, I will not ask you to explain your opinion because this can be a bit more sensitive. So we're not going to explain further here. I personally feel that people should be allowed to have abortion. Not just in certain situations. I feel if people choose to have abortion for whatever reasons, they should be allowed to, and obviously make sure you follow the guideline, because in a lot of places, you should make the decision like very early on, like not towards the end of your cycle. This is what a lot of doctors encourage because it can be very harmful for your body as well. It depends on the situation. Okay, thank you for the response. Okay, so whatever your view is, okay, it's very easy to offend and label people. Okay, usually people who say no to abortion, okay, these are what we call as pro-life, because these people believe that no matter what, okay, people should not have or be allowed to have abortion because of different reasons. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into the reasons because some of it might be beliefs, religions, and a lot of different things, and that can be sensitive. So I'll not get into that. But whatever reason that you are saying people should be allowed to have abortion, we usually label them as pro-life, and it sounds nice. Pro-life means you are supporting lives. So when we are discussing abortion, no abortion. Okay, we have to choose words that still sounds nice and will not offend any party involved, even when we do not agree with their point of view, even when we think, okay, I believe that abortion should not be allowed, and the other opinion is wrong. Even if you feel like that, in a speech, you have to be respectful. And I've also provided 2 examples here. Okay, so pro-life is basically people who are against abortion. Okay, the 2 other example is pro-abortion and pro-choice. Okay, so these usually mean that people who support abortion for different reasons. And I also belong here because I feel abortion should be allowed if you choose. Okay, but let's choose between the 2 words, pro-abortion and pro-choice. Which term sounds nicer? Because some people use pro-abortion, some people use pro-choice. Okay, definitely here pro-choice sounds better. Okay, because it emphasizes on our opinion that people should be given choices for their body. Okay. Okay. I agree. Pro-choice definitely sound better, and that's basically the more commonly used term. But I still see some people use pro-abortion when we are communicating. Let's say talking, chit-chatting, probably fine. Because if we are chit-chatting with our friends, probably okay, because that person might not feel offended or anything, and we can always justify our words and answers. Not in a speech though. If you want to talk about abortion and you want to present or you want to give a speech on abortion, okay, use pro-life and pro-choice. Pro-abortion should not be allowed to use because it does not sound nice. It sounds like people who agree with abortion, they are supporting abortion. But that's not what we are supporting. We believe that people should have choices because it's their body. So that's what I believe. And I know there's a lot of people out there who believe like that. We are not supporting abortion because we love abortion. No, we are supporting abortion because we are encouraging people to make their choices. If, let's say, husband and wife or a partner, they want to, 2 partners, they want to keep a particular baby, all right? Okay, it's their choice. If they don't want to, it's their choice because it's their body. So basically, pro-abortion can send like a negative sounding like, oh, these people, we are supporting abortion. We love abortion. That's not the case. We just agree that people should be given choices. So basically here, pro-choice is a better term. And for the other spectrum, pro-life is a better choice for these 2 different opinions because both of these terms sound nice. And this is very important because even if you're pro-life or pro-choice, you don't want to offend the other people. Example, let's say you are someone that's pro-life. You want to persuade why this is the correct belief. Okay, if you use the word pro-abortion, okay, meaning, okay, you are basically saying that, or the other party, they are supporting abortion for the sake of it. Negative message. If it's a negative message, they will be offended. We don't want that to happen. Same goes with people who are pro-choice. I've also seen people in my group saying that pro-life is basically anti-abortion. That's not what it is. They're not against abortion for the sake of abortion itself. That's a reason why they don't want to support abortion or why they don't support abortion in a lot of cases. So when we use pro-abortion or anti-abortion, these are negative words where people might feel offended. So that's why we use the term pro-life and pro-choice. So this is just a simple example. No matter what your belief is, you can't have your belief. If it's a bit controversial, it's fine. You just have to choose and find on the internet, if you don't know, what's the proper term to call different group of people. So if you feel people should be allowed to have abortion, it's basically pro-choice. If you feel people shouldn't be allowed to have abortion for whatever reason, it's pro-life. And these are the terms that people use in a lot of cases, and it sounds positive. It's able to respect both parties, even when you do not agree. Okay, another example is we want to link our social reality. So I've talked about this earlier. We want to be able to link our beliefs, our ethics, our opinions with the rest of reality so that we are able to communicate. Right, so ethical communication also means trying to define or explain something that's very close to our objective reality as possible, even when it's not something that you believe in. Okay, again, the GIF is blocking a little bit, but these are some sexist or heterosexist language. So sexist, I'm pretty sure you might know what it means. It has a clear use of gender in a particular word. Like, for example, when it comes to actress, it's usually referring to female occupations. And when we say actor, even though it's not for males, but this is what people use basically. So when it comes to these different words, you have to be very careful. Okay, when it comes to the words actress, okay, we usually just use the word actor. A lot of people actually think actor is for male, actress is for female. That's not the case. Actor is actually a gender neutral term. You can use for both. So in a lot of cases, you just use actor in 2021 because people are basically very aware and woke about gender equality and neutrality. Even when you believe or don't believe, it's all right. Okay, we have to respect the environment that we are in. So again, chairman. Okay, we have the word man there. So change it to chairperson. Stewardess, a common term to refer to usually female flight attendants. So usually instead of stewardess, we use the term flight attendant because it's gender neutral. Okay, and another one is this sentence. Okay, if a student wants to be successful, he must study. So a lot of people use the word he or anything that relates with males to refer to both gender. And this can be offensive. So basically in this situation, you need to change he or she must study or change it to they must study so that it includes both gender. And if you are in different environment, let's say you are in an environment where they support gender of anything in between, because now in certain environment, people believe that there's more than just he and she. We also have something that we call non-binary. Whether or not you believe it, support it, it's fine. You don't have to agree with it. Even when you firmly believe there are two genders in the world, male, female, it's all right. But we still have to respect them. So the reason why I'm asking you to use gender neutral terms here is not to allow you to agree that there are more than two genders. No, I'm just asking you to respect. Okay, I'm not changing your opinion. If you feel genders are only two, male, female, and that's okay. But we have to respect when we are in different environment. That's all. So we are not changing our opinion. We're just changing the words that we use in different setting. Okay, another example is this particular sentence. If a woman has a problem with her husband. So this is what we mean by a heterosexist language. Samuel, good. If a person has a problem with their spouse, very good. Okay, very quick to catch on. So here, obviously, the word woman here, you can change to person because it can be very sexist unless you know that all of your audience are females. If you know all of your audience are females, then you can use the word woman here if you are so inclined, or if you want to, it's okay. But I still encourage to use if a person because it's gender neutral. And again, with her husband. So this is a heterosexist language, meaning we always assume when there's a couple, there's always going to be husband and wife. Okay, when we say that, it can be a bit heterosexist and it can offend some of our audience. Again, I'm not asking you to agree. If you don't think same-sex marriage should be encouraged, and that's okay because that's your opinion, right? That's all right. If you believe that same-sex marriage should be allowed, and that's all right, that's also your opinion. You have different reasons. But in a professional setting, we just have to respect both people on different spectrum. So instead of using the word husband here, we use the word spouse or partner, okay, to respect all people, especially nowadays, because nowadays we have people of different orientations, gender, identity. So a lot of this. So we have to respect. We don't have to understand. We don't have to agree if you don't want to, but we just have to respect what they are going through. But I still encouraging us to understand a little bit, but it does not mean that we have to agree with them. Like there's a lot of liberal things that I also don't agree with. I understand why people feel certain way, but I might not agree with a couple of things. Like for example, I've read this article. I think this is a common thing in Western country. I'm not sure if you've heard of this term. It's I don't think this is inappropriate, but let me just share very quickly. There's something in a lot of Western countries, or maybe in Asian countries. Maybe I'm not aware of that here, but people that are in a relationship, I've come to know that there are people now, they are in a throuple, I think. So this means you have like 3 people in relationship. It can be of any gender. Like maybe like 1 man, 2 females, or maybe like 2 men, 1 female, a lot of combination of that. And I know a lot of this is happening in other places. I don't agree with it because I find it weird, but I understand. I respect it, even though that's not something that I'm going to do. I don't think it's right for me, but I understand why people believe it. Maybe they want to have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to their choices in relationships, and I'm not here to judge. So basically, whatever new things that is introduced to you, you don't have to agree with them. You just have to respect. So that's why when it comes to your speech, when tackling something very offensive, okay, just be respectful with the choice of words in terms of gender, orientation, and other beliefs in life. Let's say for abortion earlier, again, just respect. Even if you don't agree, or even if you are not able to understand, you try to, but you still cannot understand, that's fine. You just have to respect them, because we have to remember at the end of the day, they're all human beings and they deserve respect as much as us. So that's basically the ethics behind our language use. So whatever that you use, double check and see if it's neutral in a sense that is this respectful? Is this ethical? And change your speech accordingly. Okay, so we have come to the end of the lecture. Okay, so for next week, we are going to have a revision during lecture class. So if you don't want to study beforehand, it's fine. I'm going to make it a open book revision because it's just a revision. So if you don't want to do revision now, it's all right. You can go through the slides now if you want to. But I suggest probably waiting until our revision next week so that it becomes a little bit clearer on what the test is going to cover, because I don't like the idea of you going through every single thing and memorizing everything. I don't like that idea. So maybe you can just review a little bit, do the revision next week, and from there you'll be able to guess what's coming up in the test. When is the test? Okay, the test is going to be on 12th October lecture class. Michelle, do you have a question? Your microphone is on. Okay, test will be 12th October, meaning in 2 weeks' time. And on 12th October as well, we are going to have a briefing on co-curricular studies, and I'll see if I can have Ms. Rutira here with us as well to give the briefing, but that is in 2 weeks' time. How many chapters are coming in the test? Sa'ad, I'm supposed to tell you everything is coming up because I'm not allowed to give you. Okay, you know what? Let's take our attendance first, and I'll stop the recording and we'll talk a little bit about tests. Let's proceed to taking attendance first. But don't leave yet. Just want to very briefly talk about our test. Okay, you may start taking your attendance first. Okay, Aiden, Kaseng, Fatih, Wei Huan, Shao Sun, Michelle, Nihat, is Rifat still undergoing surgery?
Sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Xiao Xuan here. Sorry for the interruptions. Can you help me to take my attendance for a while?
Wait, who?
Xiao Xuan.
Okay, Shao Sun.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure.
All
Okay,
right.
done. Okay, so that's the attendance. Okay, let's stop recording first.
Sir,
Mm.
can you please mark mine? I can't see the screen you're sharing for some reason.
Okay. All right, done, Michelle.
Okay, thank you, sir.